Welcome, everybody. This is Mayor Serge Dedina. I'm calling the regular City Council meeting of the City of Imperial Beach of November 18th, 2020 to order. And it's 5 p.m. Council members and staff, please mute yourselves. And when speaking at the proper time, please announce your name. As per the way we've been managing the meeting, please turn off your video camera when you're not speaking. And so the folks that are speaking can have their video cameras on. And I want to thank everyone and welcome everyone to our regular meeting on November 18th, 2020, and thank everyone for their patience and understanding as we continue to improve our teleconference meeting process. I want to thank our IT staff for helping make this possible. This meeting must comply with Executive Order N2920 and all other provisions of state law. And now the City Clerk will announce the public comment process.
This is City Clerk Kelly. Members of the public are encouraged to submit their comments for any item on the agenda now via email to comments@imperialbeachca.gov, as no breaks will occur between agenda items. Please note in the subject line the item on the agenda that you wish to comment on. Specify if you would like your comment to be read aloud or just to be entered into the record. Written comments will be read by the City Clerk or staff for up to 3 minutes. Public comments will be accepted until the mayor announces that public comment for that item is closed. For providing oral comments during this meeting, join Zoom via desktop computer, cell phone app, or telephone. The meeting details are located on the first page of the agenda. Members of the public will not be shown on video. You will be able to speak when called upon. When it is the appropriate time, you will be instructed to use the raise hand feature on the desktop phone app or press star 9 on your telephone. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes so that business can be efficiently completed at the meeting. Again, public comments will be accepted until the mayor announces that public comment for that item is closed. Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk Kelly. And now, City Clerk Kelly, can you please take the roll? This is Mayor Dedina.
Yes. Councilmember Patton.
Patton here.
Councilmember West.
West here.
Councilmember Spriggs. Councilmember Spriggs.
Spriggs here.
Mayor Pro Tem McGeary.
McGeary here.
And Mayor Dedina.
Dedina here. Great. And now this is Mayor Dedina. Now Councilmember Patton will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, thank you very much. And a quick thank you to all veterans. November 11th was Veterans Day. Thank you for all that have served. Right hand over your heart, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Patton. And now we have the part of the evening where we give disclosures and updates on assignments and committees, starting with Councilmember Patton. Thank you. Mr. Patton? We're having the updates part of the evening.
I have updates. I just couldn't get my video to show my live picture, but just as well. Just a reminder for everybody, wear your mask when you're out and about. It's odd, I'm seeing people pushing babies with no mask. I'm seeing seniors with no mask. We're in the purple tier, holiday season, and everybody needs to do their part. So, it's just crucial. Also, I've been touring all of our bike lanes and in Imperial Beach, and wow, what great bike lanes we have. It's such a comfort zone, and even more so in the ones that are painted green. And I was just curious, maybe we could talk later, how do we get more green bike lanes? I think everybody would like that. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patton. And now Councilmember West.
Good evening, everybody. As your San Diego County Regional Airport Authority board member, we met on November 4th. There was the board meeting, and on November 16th, we met at the audit committee, and good reports coming out. The revenue is down, obviously, but the But thanks to the federal government and the CARES Act funding, it has allowed us to do fairly well in year to date, and but it is definitely highlighting the need for more federal funding to come. So we need that to continue the operations in the current form. And then on November 5th, the San Diego Community Power representative with our Finance Risk Management Committee, where we're looking at how the impacts of SDG&E and their issues that they're dealing with is rolling out their customer funding role and how that will affect San Diego Community Power. And then on Veterans Day, I was really honored to meet and to discuss with other veterans led by Congressman Mike Levin. We were joined to discuss a way to rename the local VA hospital in a way that it will be a woman leader who has been recognized on the battlefield. So they're looking through all of the years of wars that San Diego has been a part of, and looking at women who have led the way or acted in valor. And it was a really interesting discussion, and they have assembled a team of 11 members to look at that. And we could be the first VA hospital in the country to be named after a woman. So it was a really great discussion. And then upcoming on November 19th, our San Diego Community Power board meeting. I'm really excited about that, and I look forward to seeing our Citizen Advisory Committee as they come. And then I agree with what Councilmember Patton says. We have the upcoming holidays, and we all need to make sure that we're celebrating it in a safe way, that we're taking all the precautions to make sure COVID is not spread through our community. So thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you very much, citizens of IB.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Spriggs.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I only have a couple of very short items, but before that, while I'm thinking about it, I want to echo the comments of my two colleagues about doing everything we can to encourage our community members to take COVID-19 precautions seriously. We know this has become a sort of a political issue, but it's not. People, no matter what age or political belief or affiliation, are going down with this disease, including members of our community. We have a pretty high COVID-19 infection rate here in Imperial Beach and in South County. I would urge us all to try to get out more signs regarding the mask, and let's just put them all over the city on all the public property where people can see them. And let's try to fight this thing here in Imperial Beach. Last week on Tuesday, the Metro JPA held a special meeting because we had Zoom technical problems with our original meeting date the previous Thursday, right after our last city council meeting. So that meeting couldn't get a quorum with everybody on the call. Something we're doing a lot better at, Mr. Mayor, here in Imperial Beach. So we had to call a special meeting. And at that special meeting, we considered the normal agenda items plus a significant sewage spill that took place in the South Bay, which is involved in litigation. We had a closed session on that. But in the open session, it was pretty clear that there were a number of technical issues that need to be addressed that contributed to that spill. Then the next day, on Thursday, we had our sea level rise coastal cities team that's participating, representing the coastal cities in the working group that includes coastal commissioners and county supervisors from around the state. And our Coastal Cities Caucus got our story straight in terms of what our position should be on some of the issues going forward with the joint paper, and in preparation for our workshop, a big workshop with the whole Coastal Commission that's scheduled now for the 17th of December. So that should be a very interesting and productive workshop, building on the now agreed upon sort of paper between the coastal jurisdictions and the Coastal Commission staff. The Coastal Commission blessed that at their last meeting. So I'm very hopeful that maybe we can move forward another couple of giant steps at the workshop on the 17th of December. So unfortunately, I won't be able to report out on that until the new year, but I look forward to bringing everybody up to date at our first council meeting in January on the outcome of that workshop. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Spriggs. And now we have Mayor Pro Tem McGarry.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to echo my colleagues, acknowledgement and salute to our veterans and all who have served. Thank you for your service. I truly hope that next year we will be able to give you the celebration that you deserve. So on November 12th, I attended the MTS Board of Directors meeting where we reviewed our legislative program priorities for 2021. Including in our priorities included our transit funding, equity and social justice, public safety, homelessness, and labor relations. We also had a presentation about our finances at year's end, and we are doing pretty well despite all the challenges and decreased ridership that we've suffered due to COVID. And then I was appointed as an ad hoc committee member to bring to the board recommendations for next year's appointments to all the committees that we have, given that we are going to have at least 4 new MTS board members. That ad hoc committee is comprised of Supervisor Fletcher, Mayor Sotelo Solis, Council Member Montgomery, and myself. And then later that day, same day, November 12th, I attended the Public Security Committee, which I'm vice chair of. We actually received a report on an external committee that came to review how diverse and how many of our staff members are local. And compared nationwide, we scored pretty high. Our security staff is comprised up to 67% are local, and 55% of them are bilingual. So that is pretty high compared to other agencies across the nation. So that's really good news. The only area that we could improve on is in having a little bit more gender diversity. And then we had a visit from the members of the American Public Transportation Association. They are analyzing our transit enforcement department in conjunction with the community-led ad hoc committee that we've put together for analysis of how we're doing as far as public safety and our transit enforcement department. And we should have a report with recommendations presented to us later in December, which will give us a better idea of moving forward, what are the changes that are needed and what are the things that we're doing well. So that's it on my end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem McGarry. On November 10th, I attended a forum with the South County Economic Development Council together with Mary Salas of Chula Vista to talk about economic development and the response to COVID with the city of Chula Vista and the city of Imperial Beach. It was a good chance to review all the progress we've made economically, the hundreds of millions of dollars of investment that we've secured over the last 6 years and new businesses, and the fact that many of our businesses are doing well. They've adapted to COVID, like Mike Hess and Coronado Brewery, the IB Forum, et cetera. But obviously this new round of Purple Tier is going to have a significant impact on our business community. But that was a good opportunity also to thank Chula Vista. They passed a sales tax initiative for public safety first. We really looked to them for some ideas on how to develop that type of proposal. And the fact that we received 70% approval by the voters for Proposition I is a testament to the sound way that initiative was presented. In addition, Chula Vista has provided a lot of good ideas on Parks and Rec and how to develop a Parks and Rec system that doesn't cost huge amounts of money, that involves contracting out service providers and other organizations. So appreciated having that ability to talk with Mary Salas and Chula Vista about that to a large audience from throughout San Diego and the border region. Yesterday was a busy day. Yesterday we met, myself and Andy Hall and Erica Cortez and Tyler Foltz, and a member of our code enforcement division met with the property managers of our U.S. Postal Service location, post office. That is a privately owned facility, and as many longtime residents know, I think since I've been a kid, it's actually looked the same. It may be more dilapidated than ever. It's clear to us, and there have been code violations letter issued to that the owner of that property, and the request is that makes significant improvements. We think that may be the most blighted building in the city of Imperial Beach, and we do recognize the Postal Service has a lot of things going on, but it's absolutely unacceptable that the federal government manages a building that is literally falling apart inside and outside. Even the flagpole needs to be painted, and the flag needs to be replaced, which I hope we can get them to do that. The Postal Service made it as hard as possible to make that meeting happen and to respond at all. We had to get the involvement of Congressman Juan Vargas's office just to get them to respond, which is unacceptable. So I made it clear at that meeting that they needed to take this very seriously, and that we expect them to move on that. And I hope maybe early next year, we can have an update from our city staff at a council meeting to talk about the progress that's being made. Additionally, yesterday we met with, Andy Hall and I met with members of the Sweetwater School District, Superintendent Moises Aguirre, and then Trustee Paula Hall, as well as two other staff members, to talk about three things. First, there's been another breakdown of the pool at Mar Vista High School, and we're trying to do, and I want to thank Councilmember Patton for this, who helped initiate this, having a dialogue with the school district to support first the development of the new pool and making sure that residents in IB have access to that pool. Number two, to make sure that our kids have opportunities to exercise and stay active during this pandemic and more lockdowns and closures. And then three, identify areas that we could find for our athletes and kids to exercise outside of Imperial Beach, given what is the breakdown of the pool. And so a lot of parents in IB had reached out to me, and I know Councilmember Patton, to talk about their concerns about the pool closure. So this is what the latest update is. The district, anybody who knows that pool, literally the deck is collapsing. The pump system and the pipes are like our own pipes that are being replaced on Palm. They're very old and corroded. And so they continue to make these repairs, but then when you start putting high pressure through the system, it blows up another part of the system. So the school district has promised that the insistence of myself and Trustee Paul Hall to take a good look at that system and see if there's a temporary repair that can be made that doesn't cost hopefully more than $10,000, so our athletes can work out and our kids can work out in condition before any season starts. That's unclear. But obviously, if the system's going to collapse every time they fix it, it's like having an old car, right? It just keeps breaking down. Then it's obviously not worth it. So they've agreed to take a look at that. Number two, they asked us for help in identifying additional pool spaces in South County. Right now, thanks to Chula Vista National City, Loma Verde and Parkway Pool, as well as Las Palmas Pool, are open for athletes to condition in, and that we appreciate their assistance on that. They did ask us to help with the city of San Diego. Apparently, there's a pool in San Isidro called Vista Terrace, which I wasn't aware of, and I know Councilmember Patton wasn't either. I think it's a newer pool. And so we followed up with Mayor Faulkner's office to ask that be prioritized for having a partnership with the Sweetwater School District, so our kids can condition there while Mar Vista is closed. In addition, they're looking at a partnership with Border View YMCA as well for their pool. And then I know City Manager Hall will reach out to Coronado to see if there's any additional pool space in Coronado for our athletes to work out on. So that's the second part of that. And then the third part is we'll be moving forward and obviously bringing this before the council to have some sort of MOU or shared use agreement with the Sweetwater School District. They've outlined a plan to start construction of the new pool next summer, hopefully, and that would take probably approximately 18 months. So we'd like to get this taken care of as soon as possible so they can start working on construction. So I want to thank all the parents that reached out to me, and again, Councilmember Patton and Councilmember Hall, and then trustee Paula Hall, Andy and Paula are not related, for all their effort to respond to parents' concerns, and obviously all the parents who want to make sure their kids have an opportunity to exercise and be active. And then finally had a wonderful meeting with Andy Hall and our Chamber of Commerce to talk about goal setting for 2021. I want to thank our chamber for all the great work they do, and really excited about hopefully having a better, what I call year zero, than this year, which may go down as the worst year of all time, at least for many of us. So with that, thanks everybody, and we'll get the rest of the meeting started. And now we have communications from staff from Assistant City Manager Cortez Martinez, followed by Marine Safety Chief Chase and Strategic Communications Coordinator Stevens.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Assistant City Manager Cortez. I just want to notify the public and remind them that although our city offices are closed for the public, we do continue to provide services via online, phone, email, etc. But with that said, we are coming up to a holiday, which is Thursday, November 26th for Thanksgiving, and the day after, which is Friday, the 27th. So we want to inform the community about that closure because I think they caused a little confusion about this last Veterans Day. So we apologize for not noticing that in advance. With that said, we also have some holiday closures that are coming up in December. We're preparing an announcement to make sure that we inform the public of such closures. That was the only announcement that I wanted to provide, Mayor.
Thank you, and I guess we'll take it away, Chief Chase.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. This is Chief Chase with the Marine Safety Department, and I just wanted to show a quick tutorial on the Department of Health water quality results that are on our city website. If you weren't aware, on Halloween, October 31st, the DEH started doing daily testing, and so next slide. On the city website, on the bar up on the right, it says News Center. If you'd click on that, and then next slide. And this takes you to the IB News, and then you can click on water quality, and then next slide, please. And then County Department of Health water testing results, and you can click on See Test Results. Click, and next slide, please. And then you want to click on the testing results for 2020. Next slide, please. And this is OneDrive, so it links to a file system that we upload the results to. And then, so we're going to select November. Next slide. And what's also nice is I have the results going back to August, so about twice a week, and then you can see the difference. So this is daily testing, and it's a lot more robust in results. There are a couple days missed due to weather conditions. And then if you also notice, I put clean on behind the dates where the water's clean, and then also when it's polluted, so you can easily look up different days that way. Next slide, please. And on this result, this is pretty interesting. So this is where the border fence, Monument Road, and the Tijuana River mouth are polluted, but the rest of the beach north of Seacoast, the south end of Seacoast, the main beach is not polluted. And so with this, you can see if we have a swell that's moving north, or wind or surf that's pushing the current north, we probably will get polluted water. So this is like an early warning. And so I just want to point that out. Another thing that's interesting is if you look at border fence, for total coliforms, it's 1,126. Generally, it needs to be over 10,000 to be polluted. But if you combine it with E. coli at 199, if it's over 1,000, it's considered polluted. So if you have a combo like that, it is polluted, whereas if it was just 1,126, it would not be polluted. Next slide, please. So I put the from the 6th of November all the way to the 16th, and we had that storm start on the 6th. So it's interesting, there's no pollution, and then we had the rain and storm conditions, and about a day and a half later, we started seeing massive pollution in the Tijuana River mouth. And so this is just showing the coliforms of the pollution. And our beach started seeing pollution on the 12th. So if you see the South Sea coast where there's a hump in the yellow, and then Cortez on the blue, that's when the pollution started moving north. And on the 16th, that's when the closure was lifted. So this daily testing is really helping us give us more of a picture. And so we're really excited that this is here, and we'll continue putting the information on this website, and also improving the graphs. This was just created last night. So I will be posting better graphs showing the trend throughout the days. And thank you.
Chief Chase, this is Mayor Dedina. Hey, I want to thank you and your staff. You know, the communication that we get from you guys is instant. This is revolutionary. And, you know, unfortunately, I wish it was showing, you know, the spike in surf rather than E. coli or pollution. But it's clear what this shows first, and then thanks to the county. And I know Councilmember West worked a lot with Councilmember Fletcher and Cox to get this daily testing. But what's clear is that if we had the diversion infrastructure like we're asking for and filed a lawsuit over in the Tijuana River Valley in the U.S. side of the border, after that brief 30-minute rain upstream, we wouldn't have had the entire weekend closed, and then advisories in Coronado. So that's why it's critical to have this data to work backwards upstream, so that tomorrow when I meet with the EPA, we can actually say, see, this is exactly why we need to get this built right away, so we don't suffer from beach closures as a result of a minor rain event upstream. So thank you. I know Mr. West had a question or comment.
Yeah, sure did. Chief Chase, thank you so much for this information, and thank you so much for starting this database. I mean, one of the oldest databases that's out there is right at Scripps Pier, and it was started with a guy writing down temperatures of the water as he did the water temperatures at Scripps Pier, and now it's become like a groundbreaking and revolutionary way to look at ocean water temperature rising throughout our last century. So I was wondering, if you go back to where you're collecting all the data and you're inputting that information in there, I would suggest that we take a look at swell, direction, and period, and put that in there as well. And I think that you may actually be able to be giving more data that Scripps is going to be really interested in to find out how our beach is affected. And I'm really looking at this after when the infrastructure is really built that Mayor Dedina was talking about. Where are these dry water, the dry weather events and pollution events are coming for? And we can really start to really look at the data that you're collecting to help us get that information. So if you could include more of the, you've got the dates, you've got the pollution levels. If we could know what the swell was doing at that time, would be great as well.
It definitely, this was just like the first, chart we did. So We'll definitely add more to it and make it better as time goes on.
Yeah. Chief Chase, you're doing great. Don't, this was not a complaint. I'm just helping you out. That's all I'm saying, brother.
Thank you.
Well, Chief Chase, there's a long history in Imperial Beach from the very beginning of the lifeguard department when Dempsey Holder was in communication with Carl Hubbs, one of the world's great oceanographers. The long history of communication between him and then obviously the cities and lifeguards partnership with Scripps. So it's great to see that our lifeguards are scientists as well, and really active in data management and, being proactive about making sure that we protect public health and then identify ways to find solutions to this problem as well. So I do appreciate that. And you got immersed in this right away and the first day that you started, along with Big Surf, as well as public health issues and many other issues. So thanks for the great effort. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now we have Strategic Communications Coordinator Stevens.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I just wanted to give you a brief update on the recent restrictions mandated by the County of San Diego. So due to COVID-19 numbers reported being at a record high as of last Saturday, the County of San Diego has entered the purple tier, which is the highest level of restrictions. Restrictions included in this tier are the closure of indoor operations for restaurants, places of worship, gyms, and fitness centers, which does include yoga studios, movie theaters, museums, zoos, and aquariums. So we are also going into our holiday season. So the county did go ahead and release their guidance and the recommendations as we go into the holidays. Some of the recommendations that they made are virtual events for friends and family outside of the household. As many of you know, with the restrictions and the high numbers, they really want to restrict social gatherings. Shopping online is also highly encouraged for holiday gifts. Drive-through events or reverse parades where participants do not leave their cars, and donating food through food drives, local food drives, drive-through food drives, and online food bank fundraisers. Activities that are not allowed under the California Department of Public Health guidance includes in-person events or parties with more than 3 households, even if outdoors, which includes our parks. Carnivals, festivals, and live entertainment are also not allowed. In-person turkey trots, ice rinks, or similar events are not allowed due to the difficulty in maintaining physical distancing. The county is also advising everyone to get a flu shot to protect yourself and minimize complications from the flu or COVID-19 viruses. If Tyler would go ahead and go to the next slide. We do have links on our website that goes to the county reopening information in several locations. At the top of the page, you'll see the COVID-19 circled. If you click on that, it does go to a page with all types of information for COVID-19. It includes the holiday guidance, the county openings and restrictions, as well as the state blueprint for a safer economy. As you hover over COVID-19, you'll see IB reopening. You'll see the county openings and restrictions that goes directly to the safe opening and restrictions page of the county's website. And it also has the state blueprint for a safer economy. Next slide. And then if you scroll down on our homepage of our website, you'll also see in the quick link section links to go to this information as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Communications Coordinator Steffens. Any questions or comments from our council? Mr. West.
Thank you, Mayor Dedina. Ms. Steffens, this is great. I think you did a really nice job putting this together and finally having a place that we can put everything so all of our businesses can look and get information that is a quick access to them. So I appreciate it, and this is great work. I do have a question related to our businesses that you'll probably need some help from some of the other people in the city as well, maybe Deputy City Manager Cortez. But I'm interested, I asked a question about, during our last council meeting, about if there is going to be any more county money released to assist in this next round of shutdowns that our businesses can take advantage of. Because I think we're, as we are seeing, businesses are spending money. I know that Coronado Brewing Company just recently installed a more permanent outdoor seating canopy, and so did Felipe's. So does anybody have any, has anybody reached out to the county and asked them if another round of funding may be available?
Councilmember West, this is Assistant City Manager Cortez. We have circled back with County Supervisor Greg Cox. Unfortunately, both county and state funds have depleted for this round. Crossing fingers that feds get additional funding. And so we put our word and our pitch out there for assistance for future in businesses.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was going to be the answer, but I just wanted to ask. Thank you, Assistant City Manager Cortez.
Any additional questions or comments? Great. Well, thank you so much for that presentation. Obviously, this is really bad news. And we do like to thank the county, though. They moved their testing facility. It's a walk-in facility to Sports Park. So I know that during the holidays, we'll be celebrating with our kids outside wearing masks. Both my kids are obviously, like lots of other young folks, around a lot of other people. My oldest son works in a restaurant in Central California. And so, yeah, it's very distressing. We're going to try to be as safe as possible, get tests before and afterward, but it's not easy for anyone. But we've made it this far, and we're going to continue to make it further. But it's clear that IB has one of the highest rates in the county, and that east of us is one of the highest rates in the state. And then Imperial Valley has some of the highest rates on the planet. So, and then throughout California, the counties that avoided COVID until recently, or larger populations being contracting the virus, people have gotten deathly ill. It's some of the highest rates anywhere in the country. And places like Central California that again had low rates are now exceeding Los Angeles. So really concerning. And we've got a tough period between now and Thanksgiving and Christmas. Hopefully the Biden administration will take this issue seriously and work nationally on things like testing and obviously implementing this vaccine and getting really a more coordinated effort nationally and locally so we can start addressing this, and more resources into cities and local jurisdictions so we can start helping our business community as well. And with that, Mayor Clerk Kelly, do we have any public comments? Did I say Mayor Clerk, City Clerk Kelly, do you have any public comments?
Yes, Mayor. I will start with the members of the public participating through Zoom. We have 2 raised hands. I will begin with Eric Syverson. You will have 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and begin.
Yes, my name is Eric Syverson, Imperial Beach native, current resident of unincorporated San Diego County. I had originally prepared a statement on the indigenous history of the Tijuana River Valley, given its National Indigenous Heritage Month. However, what I hear about the sewage issue, the testing, the infrastructure, is so distressing that I feel I must comment now, and also on consent item number 3. For the record, if you take your graph presented by Marine Safety Leader Chase, you look at 1112, where the drawdown in the sewage occurs. At 1111, the Mexican officials returned on PB Sila pumping station, which is brand new, and all of you know that because of all of the reports being made on that. There was immediate drawdown in the river. It's the first time they turned it on that quickly. They ran the station into the rain. At 7.6 millimeters of rain, which is just a little over a quarter inch, that is 10 cubic meters of a flow per second. That inundates any $300 million infrastructure that is planned by anyone and will be rendered obsolete before it is built. You guys have a big trouble with this lawsuit. Everything I see says it's resolved, and it's resolved now, with mobile temporary pumping solutions, berms, and brand new infrastructure and operation and management guidelines from private contractors on what was once corrupt run infrastructure. On September 3rd, this game changed. It changed big time. I am writing the EPA now. We need to focus on a comprehensive cleaning of the valley. It is an absolute landfill covered in a septic field, approximately 4 square miles. You will waste $300 million on an issue from a dry event perspective is absolutely solved. 100% solved. I've had the private conversations, and they are not building your diversion. So you need to concentrate on another plan. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon, you have 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you, dear Mayor and City Council. Again, my name is Barbara Gordon. As the council reviews your housing element, I'd like you to consider requiring all affordable housing to be smoke-free, as exposure to secondhand smoke causes an estimate of 41 deaths each year. I am concerned that people live in multi-unit housing are disproportionately affected by tobacco use and secondhand smoke exposure. and are more likely to suffer from disease or death from tobacco use. Potential contributing factors include low socioeconomic status, lack of cessation services, low level of education, or inadequate insurance coverage. As one of San Diego County's Live Well partners, prohibiting smoke in affordable housing will align with the Live Well mission to improve the health of all residents and support healthy choices by preventing tobacco use. Supporting policies that favor smoke-free environments and eliminating access to tobacco products for minors can help improve the quality of life and encourage healthy living. Thank you for your leadership on these relevant and important issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the public comment period is, unless there are additional, I'm sorry, are there additional public comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you so much. And now, so the public comment period is now closed, and we'll go to consent calendar items 1 through 7. City Clerk Kelly, do you have any public comments before we discuss that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have 2 public comments. The first one is from Jack Fisher, and he says, I would respectfully request that the discussion on the items proposed by Councilman Spriggs be delayed until the newly elected council members are seated on the council. This would allow the new members of the council the opportunity to be advised by city staff on the complexity of these items and participate in the discussion. The second message is from Mitchell D. McKay. Mayor Dedina and City Council members, I wish to express my concerns regarding the current status of the city's LCP documentation and what appears to be an attempt to move and approve this draft document without a full public review and a 60-day comment period. While I recognize and applaud Mr. Spriggs' recent efforts relative to the California League of Coastal Cities, I am not at all trusting of the California Coastal Commission and their continued inference that a one-size-fits-all solution exists. Additionally, the current draft posted on the city's website is dated September 30, 2019, and that draft did not reflect any of the more recent developments as related to Sandag's RENA quota of 1,329 housing units. Therefore, I am herein requesting that a public review period be established and that, if necessary, a public virtual workshop be held to provide all interested residents with full purview of this critical documentation prior to it appearing on a city council agenda for final approval. Respectfully, Mitchell D. McKay. And there is a hand up, and it is Eric Syverson. Mr. Syverson, you have 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you. My name is Eric Syverson, Imperial Beach native, current resident, unincorporated, San Diego County. I am commenting on item number 3, which is the declaration of emergency concerning the Tijuana River Valley sewage flows, transboundary flows, dating to early 2017. As I stated in my public comments, the situation has changed drastically at the beginning of September. The International Boundary and Water Commission Operations Manager Nicholas Chapa gave a presentation concerning new pumping infrastructure. I've been informed that possibly there's temporary pumping infrastructure, diversion infrastructure of an additional 10 million gallons a day provided by the EPA. I cannot confirm that because I cannot get to the border to see. I can tell you there is no river right now. It is dry at Dairy Mart on both north and south channels. Sandy, there's ponding water in some places, obviously. Hollister is a rotting mess. FEMA is a rotting mess. Saturn Boulevard is a rotting mess of death, and the entire region will smell shortly. Beyond that, the mayor calls for public infrastructure to be built here, yet his organization continues to give infinite presentations to ask that money be spent in Mexico, American money, through SB 507. The feds have resolved that issue for me. There is no conflict of interest between the federal government and Wild Coast in any of these votes being made. Otherwise, I would ask for recusal. Beyond that, I would ask the city immediately change its perspective to a cleaning and management of the valley. This diversion, this PBC is real. The other things they're doing is real. No one else is doing anything. The feds are the only ones protecting us right now. And it's because of a Trump-appointed administrator, a commissioner, Jane Harkins, and a lot of work in Mexico and America and a lot of our money spent. But that river is not flowing right now. It absolutely is not. And that prevents a challenge to your lawsuit from a dry event perspective. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, there are no other public comments.
Thank you, everyone. And Mr. West, did you have a comment?
Yes, I think I'd like to remove consent item number 6 and move it to the end of the agenda, please.
Great. Is there a motion on that?
There is a motion.
Great. Is there a second?
Patton, second.
Okay, great. City Clerk Kelly, can we get a vote on that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. There has been a motion by West, second by Patton, to remove consent calendar item number 6 for discussion at the end of the agenda. Councilmember Patton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember West, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Spriggs, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mayor Dedina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thanks, everybody. So now we have to approve the consent calendar, the rest of it. And so I'd like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar items 1 through 5 and item number 7, please.
So moved. West, so moved.
Is there a second? I can second. I'll second. Can I second my own motion?
Yep.
Okay.
You could,
Mr.
yes.
Patton, you'd like to second?
I'll second.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Okay. So there has been a motion by West, second by Patton, to approve consent calendar item numbers 1 through 5 and number 7. Councilmember Patton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember West, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Spriggs, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre, how do you vote?
Aguirre, aye.
And Mayor Dedina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. If you see me smiling, it's because this again reminds me of managing a lifeguard station. I was a lifeguard upstairs and trying to manage all the radios and managing the speaker plus the camera and the agenda and the presentation is is a challenge. So anyway, I'm looking forward to the end of the pandemic so I can just sit in a chair and manage a meeting rather than just 2 computer screens. Anyway, and now we have the first ordinance, number 1, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2020-1200, giving notice to CalPERS to amend the city's retirement contract to include cost sharing for classic tier 1 local fire members. And Human Resources Analyst Moreno will give the report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Human Resources Analyst Moreno. I'm here to introduce ordinance number 2020-1200 by title only. On November 4th, 2020, City Council approved a resolution of intent to amend the retirement contract of classic Tier 1 local fire members. And the item tonight is an introduction ordinance providing CalPERS a notice to approve an amendment to the retirement contract of local fire classic Tier 1 members to include a 2.78% cost sharing. I want to disclose that there is a correction to the second whereas paragraph on the ordinance. It should read to include cost sharing for first tier classic local fire members instead of miscellaneous and safety lifeguard members. To finalize, I want to say that this is the second step of the process and the second reading of the ordinance is scheduled for December 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And City Clerk Kelly, do you have any public comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Mr. West, do you have a question or comment?
No, I was just going to make a motion to approve.
Great. Are there any additional council questions or comments?
I'll second the motion, Ed Spriggs.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Spriggs. And with that, I'll turn it over to City Clerk Kelly.
This is City Clerk Kelly. I will now read the title of the ordinance. Ordinance number 2020-1200 is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, authorizing an amendment to the contract between the City of Imperial Beach and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS. And now we are ready for the motion.
We have a motion and a second, right?
Okay, and there has been a motion by West, second by Spriggs, to conduct the first reading and introduce the ordinance number 2020-1200 by title only and waive full reading. Councilmember Patton, how do you vote?
Patton, aye.
Councilmember West, how do you vote?
West, aye.
Councilmember Spriggs, how do you vote?
Spriggs, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre, how do you vote?
Aguirre, aye.
And Mayor Dedina, how do you vote?
Dina, aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. And now we go to public hearing number 1, and that's resolution number 2020-117 to hold a public hearing for consideration to authorize submittal of an application for the fiscal year 2021-2022 Community Development Block Grant Funds.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, Public Works Director Minicelli will give the report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. This is Public Works Director Minicelli. Today, you have a resolution before you requesting authorization to submit an application for CDBG funds to construct the FY22 pedestrian access project. In recent years, we've been using our CDBG funds to construct ADA pedestrian ramp improvements in various parts of town. The FY22 pedestrian access project would look to replace non-compliant curb ramps on Georgia Street, 14th Street, and 15th Street. I'm available for any questions. I will note that this project does not paint green bike lanes in town, but once SDG&E has completed their work on SR 75, you can expect some new, we will be proceeding with a different project to paint green bike lanes along the entirety of Palm Avenue. And then the Bayshore Bikeway project will be looking to revamp the bike lanes on 13th Street a couple years from now. All that would really remain at that point is something to happen on 9th Street to adjust how that roadway handles bike lanes as well. Anyway, I'm available for any further questions.
Thank you, Public Works Director Minicelli. Are there any questions or comments from City Council? I'm sorry, are there any public comments, City Clerk Kelly?
Yes, there is, Mr. Mayor. There is one comment, and it's from Josie Hamada, and she says, I also wish to support Resolution 2020-17. That's a typo. I believe she meant 117. Fiscal year 22 pedestrian access project. This project will enable the community a better access. When this project is finished, the Imperial Beach community should be proud that the City of Imperial Beach supports every citizen's well-being. Sincerely, Josie Hamada.
Thank you very much. Any additional public comments just to make sure we don't miss anybody?
No, there are no other comments.
I'll close the public comment period for now, but again, if anybody sends something in or raises their hand, just let me know. We can try to, I'm sure we can accommodate them. And are there any additional public comments on our City Council comments on this? And if you want to just unmute yourself or whatever, and we can, in case there's not a lot of people who want to speak on this, or if there are. Mr. Spriggs, there you go.
Oh, okay. Just a couple questions to Public Works Director Minicelli. And is it possible to for you to describe where these ramps are likely to be in Imperial Beach? And I'm particularly interested in making sure that the eastern part of the community is well served, and that they are fairly distributed around the community. Do you have any thoughts on that, or do you have a map you can put up?
I don't have a map. The CDBG they're pretty insistent that it all be in one area at a time. So the current project, the FY21 project that will be starting early next year, it's kind of focusing on the south area of town. It's near the kind of where the helicopter bases. This project, the FY22, will be looking on the eastern end of town. It'll be on Georgia Street, 14th Street, and 15th Street, and those are three easternmost roads in town.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any additional questions or comments? Great. I don't hear anybody else who would like to speak. So I would like to hit the gavel. That's the sound of the gavel on the sounding block and close the public hearing. With that, this is Mayor Dedina. I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-117, authorizing the submittal of an application for fiscal year 2021, 2022 CDBG funds to construct the FY22 pedestrian access project, and City Clerk Kelly will take an oral roll call vote.
Briggs, so move.
West, second.
Thanks, guys. Sorry about that.
Okay. There has been a motion by Spriggs, second by West, to adopt resolution number 2020-117. Councilmember Patton, how do you vote?
Patton, aye.
Councilmember West, how do you vote?
West, aye.
Councilmember Spriggs, how do you vote?
Briggs, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre, how do you vote?
Aguirre, aye.
And Mayor Dedina, how do you vote?
Mayor Dedina, aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mr. Minicelli. Appreciate that. And all the great work you're doing to improve our roadways and pedestrian and bicycle safety throughout the city. And now we have resolution number 2020-116. We are on report number on the 2020-116, yes. Okay. Resolution 2020-116, authorizing an application for the statewide park development and community revitalization program grant funds for the Veterans Park Enhancement Project. Assistant Planner Ayala will give the report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Reina Ayala. I'm an Assistant Planner with the Community Development Department. The slide, I'm not seeing my presentation. There it is. All right, so tonight I have that presentation for you. So first I'll give a brief summary of the grant program, then I'll go over the outcome of last year's application and some of the takeaways from our meeting with state staff. And then lastly, I'll dive into the specifics of this year's proposed application. Next slide. So the Prop 68 grant is administered through the California Department of Parks and Recreation statewide park program. This is a competitive grant, and the intent of the program is to create new parks and new recreation opportunities in underserved communities across California. There have been several rounds of funding since the program first began, and hundreds of millions of dollars have been awarded, and several hundred new parks have been created throughout the state. This grant would allow for the creation of recreation features in our communities, such as a community center, as well as major support amenities such as landscaping. And staff is proposing that this year's application include the same project scope and the same project site as a previous year's application, so that the application can be resubmitted to the state promptly and with minor updates. A new authorizing resolution, however, is required, which would ensure the state that our City Council still approves this project. Next slide. Last year, the City of Imperial Beach submitted its application requesting $7.9 million to construct several recreation features throughout Veterans Park. The most important park feature proposed in the application was the construction of a new community center, which would create an opportunity for the city to expand services for a recreation program department to serve our community. The project scope included the construction of a new community center, 2 pocket parks off Encina Avenue, including a new fence around the existing soccer field, renovating the playground as an inclusive play structure and installing outdoor fitness equipment, new landscaping throughout the park with a new water efficient irrigation system, 10,000 square feet of new storm water bioretention areas, new surface improvements to the dog park, and renovating paths of travel to comply with ADA accessibility requirements. Of the 478 applications received, 64 were awarded, and the total amount requested was $2.3 billion for the available $254.9 million in that round. The City of Imperial Beach received a site visit from state staff at the beginning of the year, and they toured our Veterans Park. However, later in the spring, the city was notified that it had not been selected to receive round 3 funding. Next slide. Starting July 1st of this year, the state budget gave authority to proceed with the 4th and final round of funding. $395.3 million are available in this round, and the new due date for the application is March 12th, 2021. Throughout July and August, the state held 10 workshop webinars for this round, which City of Imperial Beach staff attended. Following the webinar, we met with the state to go over the strengths and weaknesses that were specific to the City of Imperial Beach application. During our meeting, staff was informed that its ranking based on our community's demographics impacted the points we were awarded. So the way the application is structured is that it requests both qualitative information and quantitative data, and the applications are ranked on a point-based system. And the quantitative data that's submitted is through a fact finder report, and this analyzes demographics and park acres within a half mile of a point we select. And that point is our project site, which is the park. So the less acres we have and the lower the income levels of the people living within the half mile, the more points we were awarded. So in this meeting with the state, what they specifically said about our application was that the ratio of park acres per 1,000 residents within a half mile of Veterans Park, that was higher than other applicants. The median household income around Veterans Park specifically was higher than other applicants, and the number of people living in poverty was lower than other applicants. And the other piece of feedback we received was that the nature of the project, so there are 3 types of projects. It's either a creation of a new park, an expansion of an existing park, or renovation. Ours was considered a renovation, and that did not award us the max amount of points. But the good news of all this was that the community outreach that we did and our design and concept and the environmental components that we included and the site and our community need were all seen as very strong, and we received no recommendations to change any of these aspects of the project. Next slide. And so here's a quick slide just showing the extent of the work that we're proposing for this grant application. So the proposed community center is in brown on the bottom right-hand corner. You can see the water efficient irrigation system running throughout the park, and that is the bright blue lines that we see traveling from south to north. The proposed ADA access is in the purple color, and that would lead from 8th Avenue up to the most utilized section of the park. So the proposed inclusive playground and outdoor fitness equipment and the existing gazebo. We have proposed bioswales to the east, new dog park surface improvements, and over on the far north side, we see the proposed pocket parks off Encina Avenue and the new proposed fence around the existing soccer field. Next slide. So as mentioned, our previously submitted application was strong, particularly the qualitative aspects that we presented. And staff is proposing that we use the same site as a previous application, and because one of the most important reasons, one of the most important components of this application is the community-based planning aspect. So the max points that we can be awarded for this application is 100, and the community-based planning is worth 18 points. So nearly 1/5 of the application is determined by how well we engage the community and incorporate their ideas and designs into the project. And the city conducted extensive community-based planning over a 3-year period to identify the recreation features and major support amenities that we saw in the previous slide. So as some of you may recall, initially the city conducted thorough outreach related to the senior center design project. which was used as a foundation for the proposed community center in this application. And this slide shows the outreach meetings we've held with members of our community to get their input for this grant. Next slide. So staff recommends approving the resolution authorizing the submittal of this grant application for the Veterans Park Enhancement Project. If anyone has any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you so much, Assistant Planner. Y'all, absolutely superb job and superb project. I actually got a little emotional thinking about how much our kids and community, getting emotional now thinking how much they've suffered as a result of this pandemic, economic collapse, but also the pollution that's kept them away from the beach, our main recreational asset. So I hope we get a fair shake in Sacramento. And obviously the way that the methodology is structured for evaluation is not really fair for the way they do that because IB obviously more, further away you go, you have more poverty and there's no access to parks at all. So thank you for bringing up all these great elements. With that, before we go to City Council questions or comments, do we have any, City Clerk Kelly, any public comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have one comment, and it's from Josie Hamada. And she says that she wishes to support this for the statewide park development and community revitalization program grant funds for the Veterans Park Enhancement Project. This project will bring much needed support for the entire community. And that is the final comment.
Thank you very much. I can start with with the City Council comments, starting with Mr. Patton, if you have any.
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much. And thank you for the report. Prop 68 grant, it's crucial our city gets this for our seniors, our youth, for everybody. And a community center, we deserve the best and we really have to do this right. So I was kind of on a roller coaster ride with their presentation. I had my ups and then it went down and then it's like, okay, maybe we'll get it. And I'm just kind of at a loss of words of what can we do? It seems like you're doing your homework. Obviously, you're going to these meetings, you're finding out what you need, so on and so forth, trying to get, all the I's dotted and T's crossed and find out exactly what they want. I think we're kind of dinged since we're so close to the beach. Obviously, our home prices are going to be up higher. Like the mayor said, I totally agree with. In the past, we've hired people, consultants, or we've hired people with other expertise to help us out in projects. I was wondering, would this be a case where we could actually hire somebody, not saying you're not all doing a great job, to get another set of eyes on this, a temporary hiring somebody that can help us get this written and to make sure it's spot on before we turn it in. I was just curious, is that something you've ever considered, or do you guys feel comfortable where you're at?
Councilmember Patton, Assistant City Manager Cortez. I can address that question. I believe the application is due March of next year. We can definitely look into a peer review before we submit.
What do you mean a peer review?
Resources with other cities and who do grant writings and things like that, and make sure that everything's lined up and that we completed the application to the maximum.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea to have this one slip away from us. Would be devastating. So thank you for all your hard work. I know a lot of time has gone into this, no doubt. We just can't let this one slip away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember West. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, sure. Miss Ayala, great job on this. What I really appreciate that you were able to do is you took the reasons why we didn't get accepted in the first round, and then you have applied them to this next round. So I feel very similar to Councilmember Patton. This is so important for our seniors and our children and our dogs to really get the quality equipment that they deserve. And we are, because we live so close to the beach, sometimes forgotten as far as qualifying for this. So I appreciate that you've done all this work and take the lessons learned from when we didn't get accepted last year to applying them to this year. So I've got my fingers crossed, and I just want to say great job, Ms. Ayala.
Thank you, Mr. West. And now we have Councilmember Spriggs.
Trying to unmute. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Likewise, great job, Ms. Ayala. A really good presentation, well delivered. We really do need this, and I think I agree with the comment. We need to really think strategically also about, and you've started to do this already with the improvements in this application over what we submitted before based on lessons learned. I think we really have to make sure we've covered all of our bases in making the strongest application we can. What are the little things that are going to give us points? What are the little things that are going to make the reviewers sympathetic and empathetic with with Imperial Beach? Not just the data, but who we are. I mean, as a community, and how long this community has gone with old recreational infrastructure that's inadequate. And
Mr. Spriggs seems to have been frozen. I'm not sure what we do in this case. Do we want to move on, and then if he gets back?
Mayor, this is Assistant City Manager Cortez. I think we can. I just want to, it came to mind that we do actually have a relationship with California Consultants, who has helped the city with several grants. So I think that's where Mr. Spriggs was also alluding to. So I wanted to add that additional comment. So yes, we may move to the next council member.
Thank you, Councilmember Aguirre.
Thank you.
I'm back on.
Mr. Spriggs, do you want to? I think we addressed your question or comment.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it because of internet problems. And I really, so I did say I think we should pull out all stops, try to get whatever kind of live or in color sort of attributes of our community that we can do. I would also say that the $1 million match coming out of our having to dip into reserves for COVID-19 could be a challenge. I don't think I don't want to gloss over that and ignore that, but I would like to hear what the thoughts are about how we're going to address that, and where the funds are coming from. And we have a recurring cost. If we get this, we're going to have operating expenses for staff and maintenance and utilities and all of that. I think with Prop I having been passed, I'm not really worried about that as I was when we were first looking at this project. But the cost, the lump sum matching cost, if it all has to be funds instead of in kind, then that could be a real challenge for us given the condition of our reserves right now. So could someone comment on that point? And otherwise, I think this is a great project.
Councilmember Spriggs, Assistant City Manager Cortez. Sorry about your technical difficulties. I'll repeat what I said earlier. We do have a partnership with California Consultants who have worked with the city in the past, so we will make sure to work with them on this grant. In regards to the match, it's in kind.
Beautiful. Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great job, City Planner Ayala. It was a very clear, very thorough presentation. As someone who's worked for a very long time in the nonprofit sector, I think that the practice of doing your due diligence in asking what it is that you did well in your application is vital. And I think that's a really good practice, across the board. Obvious benefits of this project are completely and utterly necessary for our community center, for seniors, Our dog park definitely needs a little bit of work. The fencing on the soccer field as well to prevent the balls from flying out into the street. I think that's all really great. My question, Ms. Ayala, is you mentioned that last cycle there was 395 million available, or was that for this cycle in total?
Yeah, Council or Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre, that is for this cycle. Last cycle was 254 million. This cycle is 395 million.
Got it. So that means that last cycle was only 12% of applications were approved, more or less. It was a pretty low number. You said there were 62 that were approved out of 478.
I believe it was 64 out of 478, correct?
Got it. What is the distance of radius that, low-income households need to be from the project or from the beach? What was that ratio?
So it's a half-mile distance that they're taking the demographic information for. And so the way that it works through this community fact finder report that every applicant needs to submit, that data is fed from the 2014 to 2018 American Community Survey Block Group Estimate data. Mm-hmm. And so the way that it works is that everybody submits their report, and it's a ranking system. So if we fall in the bottom 10%, so we have the higher incomes, then we'll get the lowest amount of points. So it's a comparison to other applicants. So it's something that we don't have very much control over, because it just depends on what other communities apply. So if all the other communities that apply, if their communities have even lower household incomes and higher poverty rates than we do, mm-hmm. then we'll get less points. But if we happen to be one of the communities with the lowest household incomes compared to all the other applicants, then we'll get more points.
So it just seems to me that we're at I don't want to use the word permanent, but a consistent disadvantage given our specific, demographic, being a coastal city and our socio-demographic. So I would just, encourage my colleagues on the council to think about potentially exploring a legislative fix of so that we could have an equitable distribution of resources or chances, at least in these types of grants, that because no matter how well we do in our, community outreach, community-based approach, community planning, there's always going to be that certain disadvantage that we may face dependent upon some of the other applicants. So I encourage my colleagues to keep that in mind, and that perhaps through the League of Cities or other mechanisms we could potentially explore so that, we improve our chances. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. This is Mayor Dodino, and you're right, Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre. And the reality, I just actually, since I'm a Google Map nerd, I just actually did the measure distance from Veterans Park. And it's clear that if we had an extra tenth of a mile or 0.2 of a mile east and then north, we'd pick up the lowest income neighborhoods in IB. We're missing, the kids that live in the highest concentrations of poverty by 0.2 of a mile on the north and then on the east. So yeah, we always seem to be a disadvantage of these issues compared to other cities. This was happening with Sandag money, and we had to get them to change the way they were assigning resources, so the match wasn't required in cash. So wealthy cities were always getting preferred. So I definitely think we need to reach out to our new Assembly member elect Chris Ford, and then State Senator Ben Wayso, to make sure that we're thinking strategically about how to get this grant and money is approved, and make sure that we make the case about the devastation we've suffered from pollution and how our kids have suffered as a result of that. I think we have an additional public comment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's one raised hand. It's Cheryl Quinones. Ms. Quinones, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Quinones, community member. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for what you just said. By doing just a tenth out of that I guess it's a quarter of a mile distance to the north and the east would make so much difference for our children who are so disadvantaged and don't have anywhere to play. And so I want to thank you for Googling that up for us, because you're absolutely right. If they just moved it the needle just a little further, we have to qualify. And I really appreciate the Pro Tem's assertion about legislation and how we are disadvantaged down here, and those things should be looked at, especially for our little town. And but I also want to give kudos to all our council members and mayors of the past, that our Veterans Park is beautiful. It is so beautiful. And when you go there and appreciate the grass and the greens and the park and the stones that the people have put their names on in memory of family members, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what we have. And we can dream big, but we have a beautiful park. So thank you again, Mayor and City Council and those from the past and our staff. Thank you. And have a good evening.
Thank you, Trustee Quinones. Appreciate it. And then I want to thank, first, that was a superb presentation by Assistant Planner Ayala, but also we actually have philanthropists in Imperial Beach, two philanthropists, one who lives in the city and another one who had connections to the city, reach out to me and then quickly reached out to our city staff asking for information on our Parks and Rec programs and potential investments they could make to help. And I know that our city staff and then Assistant Planner Ayala and then Public Works Director Minicelli got back immediately with really detailed and well-written and argued information on investments that could be made. And so we haven't heard back on the outcome of that, but I know it could be match for this program. So I do appreciate that. And, we have a compelling story to tell, and our kids obviously are in great need. And I think one of the things we'll be talking about this year is, now that we have our trustee listening, is, potential joint use with our school district on ways that we could use playgrounds in schools, especially against places like central schools, and identify how we could maybe innovatively do that. I think there's a lot of opportunities for this, and we need to make that case. It's really critical. We're shortchanging our children, especially now during this pandemic. And so this is for me at least, in addition to the public health crisis, the economic crisis, and our sewage crisis, this is the crisis that I'm definitely going to spend a lot of time on in year 0 or 2022. Or 2021, I'm sorry. Anyway, with that, I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-116, authorizing the submittal of a grant application for the Veterans Park Enhancement Project. And City Clerk Kelly, I'm sorry, is there a motion in a second?
So moved.
Did we get that?
Is there a second?
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. It's nice seeing all your smiling faces.
Everybody wants this one.
We miss having your smiling faces present for these meetings. So anyway, City Clerk Kelly will take a roll call vote.
There has been a motion by Spriggs and a second by Patton, I believe, to adopt correct resolution number 2020-116. Councilmember Patton, how do you vote?
Aye. Patton, aye.
Councilmember West, how do you vote?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Councilmember Spriggs, how do you vote?
Ditto, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre, how do you vote?
Aguirre, aye.
And Mayor Dedina, how do you vote?
Dedina, aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
And now we have item number 2, one that I know this will warm the heart of Councilmember Spriggs. It's our the thing that he looks forward the most to of all the year, and that's our FY 2019-2020 and FY 2020-2021 financial update. We have to make this fun. We can't do this in person, so I'm missing all that interaction. Anyway, we do appreciate your investment and time in making sure our finances are in order. And we do appreciate Finance Director Gitmed, who jumped in the middle of the pandemic and was beyond running. You're like running 100-meter Olympic gold medal times to get us back on track with our finances, and we do appreciate that. So you will give the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and City Council, this is Finance Director Joanne Gitmed, and yes, I'm here to give you your 1920 review for fiscal year 1920 and a fiscal year 2021 first quarter update. And I hope I get more people excited than just Mr. Spriggs, but I don't know, there's us number of people that just seem to like him a little bit better. The first thing we're going to start with is the fiscal year 1920 review. Please keep in mind, these are going to be unaudited numbers. We did complete our annual audit. However, our financial statements have yet to be issued. So we cannot declare these to be audited number until those financial statements are completed. So first of all, we're going to talk with about our citywide revenues. Citywide revenues for fiscal year 1920, and that means the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019, and goes through June 30th of 2020. Our citywide revenues were $35.3 million. And our general fund, which is the one we focus on primarily because that's our kind of our major operating fund, came to be $21.9 million. On our expenditure side, again, our citywide expenditures were $35.2 million, and our general fund expenditures were $21.8. So basically, or actually just shy of 21.9. So basically, our general fund was balanced. We came in revenues over expenditures by just a small amount, which, considering the circumstances, was definitely a good thing. So on the general fund, our actual revenues actually exceeded the budgeted revenues by about $767,000. The primary reason for this was in our category of our property taxes, which is our general purpose, the redevelopment property tax transfer fund, both the pass-through and the residual, and our VLF. That category itself came in about $725,000 over budget, which was definitely a good thing. On the expenditure side, our actual expenditures came in below the amended budget by about $1.3 million. And there's several factors to this. And the first part I want to say is that we actually had an increase in some areas that we hadn't anticipated in our budget. There was just shy of $60,000 in costs due to the cannabis initiative and the actions that had to be taken care of or handled by the city, the professional services and such for appeals with the initiative. And then on top of that, in fiscal year 1920, we also had $100,000 in COVID-related costs that had not been budgeted. But the nice part was that with the passing or the adoption, I guess you could say, of the financial preparation and recovery plan by council in May, the staff had done a soft hiring freeze and a soft spending freeze, and then became very conscientious about their departmental expenditures and knowing that we needed to keep things in line. And then on top of that, there had been $1.5 million in CIP projects that had been approved by the City Council in 1920 that were not completed. So those budgets will carry over into the 2021 season, or 2021 year, excuse me. In the end, our revenues exceeded the expenditures in the general fund by about $87,000. Now, one of the things we want to highlight with this is the fact that during the initial COVID preparations, I guess we could say, the council had authorized the city staff to use and dip into our economic uncertainty fund. This balance at year end, with this balance at year end, we did not have to use that economic uncertainty fund. We were able to keep all that in its place. Just to backtrack just a moment, because during our council briefings, there was a question that did come up regarding our property taxes and what exactly is included in that. So in our property tax category, we have our 1% property tax, which is that's our base property tax, where it's 1% of the assessed values. And the city receives a pretty good portion of that compared to, and oftentimes to other cities, we get about 20% of that. And then in addition to that, as a result of our past or our now defunct redevelopment agency, we have what's called a RPTTF pass-through, which is basically the distribution of the property tax increment from that former redevelopment agency. We also then have a RPTTF residual, which is funds that remain after the pass-through has been distributed and after any and all obligations and admin fees are paid, that is then distributed to the agencies. And then finally, we have what's called our in lieu VLF, which is a result of an action back in 2004 with the passing of Prop 1A and the property tax swap, whereby the state actually replaced a portion of our vehicle license fees with property tax. So that is our kind of in a nutshell what our property taxes consist of. To kind of go back now, our fund balance, this is going to be the kind of the wrap up on the first or on 1920. This is a graphic comparison of our fund balances from June 30th, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, with the orange being the June 30th, 2020 fund balances. As you can tell, the city fared very well through this year. Our economic uncertainty fund, we were able to replenish. As I said, we didn't actually even have to use it. We were actually just able to take it back to its appropriate balance with the new fiscal year. It needs to be at $2.1 million, or $2.1 million. So we've replenished that. We did see a decrease in our public works strategic because those funds shift to the general fund unassigned with the approval of those CIP projects. And then we add our excess revenues over expenditures into our general fund unassigned. So our fund balances came out very well this year. Like I say, the city held steady, which was a very good thing during this time. Okay, so now on to our first quarter 2021 update. So this is going to be a whole new year, and we have no idea where we're going to be going and what's going to be happening. So I want to start out with comparisons aren't practical. Even though I'm going to be giving you some comparisons in some major revenue categories, they're really not practical because we are comparing a COVID world to a pre-COVID world. So it's not fair to say that we should be exactly where we are or where we were last year. We have no roadmaps. We are completely uncertain. We don't know if COVID, there's places where we thought COVID was going to impact us that it hasn't. And there's places where we didn't think COVID was going to impact us where it could. So our whole goal this next year is to keep our revenues and expenditures in balance. So we'll be watching those very closely over, on a regular basis and keep you informed if we have any issues or problems. So to begin with, if you recall again, the financial preparation and recovery plan that Council reviewed in May of this last year, the initial thought was we would need to reduce our major revenue categories by different percentages. And this is a side-by-side of what the original budget was for 2021 versus the reductions. So we thought we were going to be needing to reduce our general fund revenues by about $928,000. At this point in time, staff is not going to make any formal budget amendments. We want to continue to watch our revenues and see how things go and find out if those reductions are actually going to be necessary. So again, we'll keep you apprised as we go throughout the year. Okay, to begin with, this is our major general fund revenue categories, again, side by side with the first quarter of 1920 to the first quarter of 2021. The orange being our current fiscal year, 2021. As you can see, in most areas, we are equal to or even slightly ahead of the same time this prior year. Where we do have our differences, it is a very nominal difference. And I will show these to you categorically and with numbers by category. So numerically, this is that same graph. So as you can see, comparing to the prior year, we are only $50,000 below the revenues at the same time last year, or less than 2%. So in reality, we're pretty much right on track. Now, this could change throughout the year, both better or for worse. And again, we will continue to monitor them to be sure. Also keep in mind that these funds, the numbers that I'm showing you are actually net of our capital improvement projects and our grants, because those are usually awarded on a fluctuating basis. However, the one thing that also is not in here is our COVID-related funds have not been included in this number. I wanted to try to compare apples to apples as much as possible. So to start with, we have sales tax. Sales tax compared to last year, we're actually up over 20% from last year. 20% sounds like a lot, but in reality, it's about $25,000. But still, compared to what we've had to go through for this, or what we're going through with COVID, that's actually a pretty good number. Sales tax was one of the areas where we thought we were going to see a large impact as a result of COVID. But because of the fact that the sales tax base in Imperial Beach is as it is, where we rely primarily on food, hotels, gas, and then also on those people who are doing a wonderful job with their mail ordering, that sales tax comes to us. The county and state pools have been increased because of the mail ordering. Everybody still needs food. A lot of people are still doing some driving, so those areas have stayed very stable. Our current budget for 2021 is $1.4 million. Our preliminary projection is $1.6 million for this year. Now, again, this is a very preliminary projection. This is based just on our first quarter, and we'll be watching this very carefully as the year goes on. The other thing I want to make note of is this preliminary projection does not include the Measure I funds. The staff at this point is not including those in any projections. We won't be receiving any of those funds until at least, well, it goes into effect in April of 2021, so we won't see any funds until at least May, if not June of next year. So at this point, we are not counting on any Measure I funds as we're progressing through our budget year. Our next section is the transient occupancy tax. We actually show a slight increase in our transient occupancy tax, but it is very minimal. And what's been a benefit for us on this is that we have the addition of the Hampton Inn this year for this fiscal year. So that has allowed our TOT at this point to help or stay level at this time. We don't know how this is going to progress with potential shutdowns or stay-at-home orders. Our current budget for this fiscal year is $950,000. A very preliminary projection for this year is about $862,000. So we could feasibly see this one come in a little bit lower. The next category is our business license fees. We have seen a slight decrease in our business licenses compared to the same period last fiscal year. However, this is not an area that we can determine, is this COVID related? Our businesses, have businesses closed down? Our business is just not paying. We have found, our system does not allow us to track that effectively. We have found that we have received lots of new business applications. Although we do have people who have renewed late, we do get renewals on a very regular basis. And in reality, we haven't seen that many applications come in that just say that they've closed and gone out of business. So if it's COVID, we cannot determine, the bottom line is we cannot determine if this is a COVID-related minor decrease or not. Again, very preliminary projection of $379,000 for this next fiscal year, just a little bit below what our current budget is. Parking citations is the next category I wanted to go over. This is one that can kind of scare you at first when you see a decrease of 70%, but when it's only a 70% decrease compared to last year and just in this category. So it's really a decrease of about $27,000. The primary reason we see this decrease is because during the initial impacts of COVID, council had determined that they wished to suspend parking citations for street sweeping. And so that has resulted in a large decrease in our parking citation revenues. So currently, our current budget under this category is about $150,000. A preliminary projection for this one is about $75,000. The next category I wanted to show you was our building permits. This is another area where we have seen a decrease of about 16% compared to the same period last year. However, this is not one that we can say is COVID or non-COVID related. As you can see by the graph itself, our building permits fluctuate on an annual basis, and they run in their own cycle. They're almost impossible to predict. Even in a good year, you could miss your target high or low, depending on what the building in the area is doing. Currently, we have a budget of about $410,000 for this category. Our preliminary projection in this category is about $350,000. So I wanted to bring this graphic back to you again to show the side-by-side comparison, because sometimes when you start looking at the percentages on the other areas and you see some of those bigger percentages, it can kind of be deceiving. But again, if you look at the side-by-side comparisons, the differences from year to year are very, very nominal. And again, we're down only by about $50,000 compared to the prior year. Expenditures I'm going to do just kind of briefly because it's tougher to go into the individual categories. So what I've done is I've broken down our comparison for the quarter between our primary reporting functions that we use actually for reporting in our financials. So for the first quarter this year on a comparison, we are over compared to last year by about $330,000. Now, the primary reason for this, if you look in that general government section, that does include about $300,000 in COVID-related expenses. Now, those expenses will be reimbursed by the CARES Act funding that we are receiving from the county and the state. In fact, we'll be receiving over $750,000 from the county and the state this year to recoup any CARES Act funds or CARES Act expenditures that we encounter. Additionally, we have public safety that's over by about $100,000. The reason for our public safety being over is our fire department has been very active as a part of a strike force for the various wildfires. Again, the nice part about this, though, is that Cal OES will be reimbursing us for the overtime from our firefighters. In the parks, senior center, junior lifeguard category, you can see that we are actually below last year by about $90,000. As a result of COVID, the seniors and the junior lifeguard programs have been inactive for this year, resulting in that variance. And then finally, in our public works, they're just slightly off, but that is usually due to either demand in overtime or facilities, depending on what kind of facility projects or improvements are being done at the time. All right, so as we wrapped up the first quarter, if you looked at our revenue, we were about $2.3 million on our revenue and about 11.35% of our budgeted revenue. So 25% of the way through the year and 11.35% of our revenue. On the expenditure side, we're $5.2 million and we're 25% of our budgeted expenditures. It seems a little deceiving, it seems a little scary, but it's actually the perfect way to show you how important a healthy fund balance is, which thankfully the city does have. This is not abnormal for a property tax-based city to be out of balance like this. On our revenue side, property tax, which is one of our largest components of our budget, are received in December, January, and April. So our largest revenues received midway to end of the year. Sales tax, we see a 2-month delay from the time it's collected at point of sale before we receive it in-house. And then franchise fees, which are paid on a quarterly basis with our first payments coming in October. So as you can see, for being 25% through the year, some of our biggest revenue sources we have yet to receive. And then on the expenditure side, 25%, we're doing really good there, considering we have over $300,000 in COVID-related expenses. We have election costs that were higher than anticipated because of an executive order for mail-in ballots and those funds had to be paid for by the city. Additionally, we have our pension expense for our unfunded accrued liability, our UAL. We front load and we pay in July so that we don't have to pay the interest payments on it throughout the year. Additionally, our part-time salaries for our ocean and marine safety are front loaded where the services are more in demand through the summer and then they lessen off during the year and then pick up again usually in May to June of next year. And then as I already spoke about, the fire overtime from the wildfire strike teams. So that wraps up my presentation, and I hope I didn't put all of you to sleep since all the number crunchers like some of us are. but I am available if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll start with, appreciate the information. We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Director Gitmed. Wonderful job. Thank you for keeping us, financially solvable and being so proactive. I have absolute confidence that we are in the best of hands. I think that it's really great that we continue to work to keep the budget balanced because, yes, indeed, we are living unprecedented times, and it's just not our agency, but agencies across the region. I know that this is something that we're dealing with at MTS, and all we can do is make educated guesses to the best of our ability. Excuse me, knowing that we can't know what we don't know. So I want to, applaud staff and my colleagues for really being proactive, especially when it comes to our unfunded accrued liability. I know that other cities are really struggling financially when it comes to this issue area. I did have a question. If you can go back, I don't know the number. Yes. No, it wasn't so much a question as much as a comment. I know I had this question during staff briefing, but I just find it quite surprising that we're being charged for the election costs. I think that going to mail-in ballots was great. I think that's the right thing to do. I just think that it's quite surprising that we are taking the burden of that cost. So, just wanted to make that comment there that I just don't think that's very fair, but it was absolutely necessary. So with that being said, I just want to commend staff for being proactive and, with Measure I coming into effect in April and with the due diligence of staff keeping our budget balanced is it's encouraging to know that we have that safety net and that our community has really prioritized public safety and all of the areas that we need funded. So that's it. General comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Spriggs.
Yes, thank you very much, Finance Director Gitmed, for that report. We meet twice a month to talk about these kinds of things, so there's really no surprises here for me. I really am very pleased with the way you and city staff and Assistant City Manager Cortez and City Manager Hall have kept run the city with an iron fist with regard to expenditures, but even more so looking at what's coming up, being conservative with the revenue estimates and a little more expansive with the expenditure estimates. I think that is what has kept us solvent and kept us in good shape, is that approach to budgeting. So I really commend all of you for doing that. I also agree, being a close observer of the budget stuff and, what's going on in the league and other cities and how people are dealing with the COVID-19 crisis. The cities that have taken these proactive measures like we have are the ones who are adapting and coming out all right, especially when you take the measures early. The ones who are too reactive to the situation sometimes get caught with expenses that are really high. We're lucky, as you pointed out, that we're insulated from some of the wild revenue variations that other cities have that are more dependent on sales tax and TOT. Some of the high tourism dependent or high sales tax dependent cities, they really go up and down with a crisis like COVID-19 has caused, but we're pretty steady. I think my only comment is on the revenue estimates. I think you were right on the smaller accounts. to be conservative with reductions in the coming period. I still am worried about the sales tax estimate that shows an increase. I think we were fortunate that that we didn't have a longer lockdown. We're fortunate in some ways that our community are frontline workers that are blue collar, that have to go to their jobs, they have to buy gas. That also accounts for our higher COVID-19 numbers probably as well, that exposure. So that's really a double-edged sword for us. How much that's going to continue as this pandemic gets further and further out of control and more difficult to rein in because of the way the anti-COVID measures have been politicized. I'm worried that even a new administration may not be able to, and the measures that the state and county are trying may not really have the kind of effectiveness over the winter period, which is going to be critical, that we would like to see, and that behavior is going to be worse than it was. Our behavioral response is not going to be as good as it was in the earlier phases of the crisis. So my concern is that we may see TOT and sales tax revenues reduced, and we might want to keep a close eye on those so that we look at those being conservatively estimated, just like some of the other revenue sources, the smaller revenue sources that you reviewed. So that would be my only comment. I'll be certainly, talking with you all every other week, or certainly every month, about how these things are going. And we do have Measure I as our ace in the hole that'll come on stream towards the very, very end of this planning period, the very end of our current financial year. It's not going to help us too much during the year. We're going to have to balance the budget pretty much without Measure I, as you mentioned. But at least it's nice to know that it's there and that our citizens stepped up, saw what we needed, and especially in this COVID-19 crisis, and voted the way they did. I'm very proud of our community in that regard. So that's basically all I've got to say at this point. Thanks.
Thanks, Councilmember Spriggs. Councilmember West.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much, Mayor. Director Dibnett, thank you very much for this great presentation. It's nice to see that you were doing things before, and now that you've assumed this role, you are definitely, I would call, putting your thumbprint on our finances, and it's really nice to see. And you are obviously passionate about this and really doing a good job. I think one thing that I would like to point out is that the sales tax that we've been generating, I mean, I think it's very important to see that, the Hampton Inn has been even though they have been significantly challenged during this time, they have been able to overcome and really done well. I was speaking with the general manager over there just recently, and their projections are actually higher than they expected. So that's great news. And I think it shows how important that these hotels that we have planned in our community, they need to get open, and they will be a significant contributor to our budget as we move forward. So I think that's great. And then also, I think it's really important, and I applaud our California legislature, who really stuck to it and went and got the bill passed that taxes a lot of these delivery services that come into our communities. Those are significantly in helping out our sales tax in so many levels. And I think that that was a great foresight by our state legislators. And I think that we are reaping the benefits of those things. And last but not least, I think it shows City Manager Hall, Assistant City Manager Cortez, Director Gitman, you guys have all been very conservative about this, and it's helped us maintain this level of financial stability that the majority of small cities in San Diego County do not enjoy. So I applaud your effort, and I think you guys are doing a great job, and thank you very much for all that you have done and continue to do. And I look forward to the financial stability of Imperial Beach for many, many years. So good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. West. Councilmember Patton, any questions or comments?
Yeah, just real quick. Thank you, Director Gitman. The presentation I heard on Monday was good. Tonight's was even better. Thank you so much. I also want to thank all the staff that keeps an eye on this, our finances every day. It's not like we look at finances once a week. This is looked at every day, and it shows. And also I want to thank all our department heads who have watched what they spend, and that has really made a difference as well. So overall, it's nice that our city is in such good shape, and I look forward to the future. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Finance Director Gitman. We appreciate it. And I think, the issues are that, Mayor Pro Tem McGarry, did you have additional questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just had sorry, I didn't think of this as I was speaking earlier, but I just had a thought of perhaps we could work with staff to engage community in a campaign, for example, to encourage people to gas up before they leave town. I don't know if a lot of people in our community know that those sales tax go to us, and sometimes they might, gas up on their way back from work or whatnot. I would just like put that on the table for you and my colleagues to consider that maybe it's something that we can encourage people to do on social media. I was just thinking about that right now. So thank you.
That's a great idea. Right. Great presentation. And, it reminds me, this is very similar, our situation to what I saw a great presentation on finances of household incomes across the country. And it's clear that basically after the pandemic and we had some government assistance, people's incomes and check and expenses are pretty much, for low income families and middle class families, pretty much back to what they were before the pandemic, because they don't have a lot of money, discretionary income. Whereas the wealthiest families have cut back about 30%, and they're not going on their trips and spending money on hotels, et cetera. And I think that it correlates, like if you look at Coronado and IB, Coronado's had to cut back a lot. They've lost a lot of money in revenues, but they had a lot of money, whereas we really been pretty bare bones, which is great to be well managed. I think the issue is, and we saw with the parks discussion, our low incomes or low revenues have shortchanged our kids and our seniors and our families. And so now, thanks to the fact that we're well managed and we have Proposition I or Measure I pass, we have a brighter future ahead of us, and we can reinvest back in the community so we can stop shortchanging our residents. And it's just amazing what we have gotten used to not having compared to what every other city in California seems to have: a parks and rec department, swimming pools, tennis courts, a vibrant senior center, all kinds of programming for residents. And so it's great that our residents aren't demanding that immediately because we don't have the money to pay for it, but we've got to do better. So I'm glad we have a stable financial base so we can begin to add and invest. So with that, thank you so much. There's no action required, but we do appreciate everyone's work on this and continued work to make sure that we can have stable finances. Now we'll move on to it's the consent calendar item number 6, and that's request by Councilmember Spriggs to place a year-end update, an upcoming year preview of the city's local coast LCP, a general plan, the housing element update, and a status update of the Tijuana River Valley on a future agenda for discussion and possible action by the City Council. Before we go to you, Mr. Spriggs, maybe, I know since Councilmember West was the one that initiated pulling this, maybe you want to just start, Mr. West, and then we can go to Mr. Spriggs.
Well,
yeah, sure.
Why can't I explain why I wanted it on the agenda before we explain why it should be challenged?
Just in deference to Mr. West, he asked for the item to be pulled, so I'm going to defer to him, and then we'll go to you.
That's backwards, but okay.
On that note, I'll move forward. I think, I am watching our federal government right now in a complete chaos about a smooth transition. And I think that after just completing an election and completing this, I think it is very important that I feel very strongly that all three of the items that are put forth, the LCP, the housing element, and the T1 River, are all very, very important. But when you're getting a turnover of 40% of the council, I think it's important that we put this forward to where our future council members, Councilmember-elect Fisher, Councilmember-elect Leve Gonzalez, they need to put their fingerprint on this. And I know that my perspective is different. And I think that our community wants the perspective of Mr. Fisher and Mr. Leve Gonzalez to be accounted for. And I think that that's very important. And I do believe that those should be accounted. And last but not least, I think it's important that we need to make sure that we have open government, transparent government with a smooth transition to make sure. So I'd like to make a motion to move this until the first council meeting that is set forth by the city of Imperial Beach with the new council all in attendance.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Well, we had a motion, a first and second. Mr. Spriggs, I know you wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was hoping to avoid, Mr. Mayor, because the motion and second are which may prevail, but they're made in the absence of the justification for putting the item on the agenda. The whole idea for these items to be on the agenda for the outgoing council is not to exclude the incoming council. It's to give this council on these existential issues to Imperial Beach. These are some of the major issues facing, not the only ones, but some of the really major issues facing our community. To give this council for the last time as a council, each member an opportunity to reflect on these issues with the new council members invited to be present in the audience while we talk about what we've been doing for the last 2 years. What are our concerns? How do we see these issues as going forward? And what are the challenges for the new council with respect to these existential issues? That's the kind of discussion I was hoping we would have on each of them in front of the new council members, just so that we could have a transition where they hear these perspectives, because I'm not sure that they've been in the audience or have read the minutes from our many different discussions on these points over the last 2 years, where this council has worked together, pretty much a 5-0 unity on a pretty much 5-0 unity basis on most of these issues. So that was the idea. And to Jack Fisher's point, I think I, for one, would see a detailed discussion of each of these, possibly in a workshop format, very early in the next council's term, so that indeed the new council members would be able to get oriented to these key issues and ask questions and take a deep dive and have a lot of information presented to them. This is not intended to preempt that. This was to give a sort of preliminary sense to them as to what the issues are and how we've dealt with them and what we think we ought to be doing going forward. They can take it or leave it, but at least they'll hear it and the community will hear it. And it'll be, very summary form. So that was the idea behind putting these on the agenda. And it's not uncommon for councils to have, especially when there's a lot of turnover, to have a sort of a end of term review where the council members have a chance to talk about the major issues facing their community. That's not an unusual thing to do. And it's a good way to have each of us have our views memorialized in the minutes, even if we're not going to be on the council going forward. So that was my thought. It was really a positive aid to transition, to community education, to all of us, my colleagues on the council, to have a chance to talk about these big issues, and for the new council members to be in the audience and hear the conversation, hear the discussion. Those were the reasons. So, you know, whatever the council's pleasure is in terms of not doing that, you know, I think there are reasons to do it and to still take these issues up early in the new cycle next year.
Thank you, Mr. Spriggs. Councilmember Aguirre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Spriggs. I don't see anything wrong with having an update on these crucial issues that are super important to the community. Getting an update on Tijuana River, you know, on the Tijuana River, on the local coastal plan, on the housing element. It's just a discussion. It's just for us to hear the thoughts of the current outgoing council. It's an opportunity for the incoming new council members to familiarize themselves with the issues that we've been working on for the last 2-4 years. I absolutely agree with Councilmember Spriggs in that regard. I also believe that it's something that we should take on early next year with the new council body. And, you know, in a nutshell, I agree with him in this regard. So thank you.
Thanks. I can see both points, but you know, I did predict this. We would get this kind of response from the public and even from our council members elect, precisely because of the fact that we have discussed these issues ad nauseum, pretty much almost every council meeting. And I know that you know, for staff to prepare these issues, these discussion items requires extensive work. I'd rather spend the time and have quality discussion, and I think would serve the public interest more next year in our new council members, and whether it's you know, one council meeting at a time where we kind of do an update, but you know, these are complex issues and they require the full attention of our new council members rather than throw everything at everyone at the same time. I think we're better served by doing this, but next year there's no rush. It's not like we haven't discussed the Tijuana River Valley every council meeting. And, you know, you just gave an update on a lot of, you know, LCP, sea level rise stuff. We've talked about housing. So, you know, just in the interest of the public interest and our new council members elect, you know, I think it serves us much better to do that next year. So I'm going to support the motion, but I'd like to amend it so that we have a more staggered 2021 rollout of these events, these issues, and may possibly do them at each, you know, each council meeting, so we have more time to review them. I'm not sure I do that amended motion with Mr. West and Mr. Patton.
I support that amendment.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great. City Clerk Kelly, is there a vote? Can you take a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I don't understand the difference between and you know, I have no hard feelings about not doing this. I just thought the outgoing council members would like to have an opportunity to have their say on these issues of major importance to the community. If that's not the case, then fine. But I don't understand the difference between your amended motion and the original.
Mr. West had said, I think the motion was about having this at the first council meeting with the full new council. What I'm recommending is we have a staggered, maybe, you know, one of these issues at different council meetings, so we don't all throw the most complex issues we're facing as a city at once to the public. We have a little bit more opportunity to discuss this, and staff doesn't have to prepare complex documents for one city council meeting. I think it's a lot of work, and it's not necessary. So anyway, we're trying. Okay, maybe that would even be a workshop and balance the public interest, and within the interest of our new council member elect, one of whom has expressed his concern about where we're going. And I want to make sure that I know one member of the public who's been deeply involved in this issue had some idea about maybe nefarious interest here. There was none. I'm going to make this clear for the public record. I expressed my concern about this to you in our city manager hall and requested this not be on the agenda. You went and put it on anyway for approval because I said this is exactly the kind of thing that would happen. So I take, you know, our role as public stewards to make sure that we have a full and working a collegial council for the next year. Very seriously, I think it's really important to defer to our new council members elect, just like we did with our new council members that when they came on in the past. So anyway, I feel strongly about that. So anyway, I'd like to, if we can get a roll call vote, that would be great.
There's been a motion by West and a second by Patton to bring this item back in a staggered rollout. Councilmember Patton, how do you vote?
Patton, aye.
Councilmember West, how do you vote?
West, aye.
Councilmember Spriggs, how do you vote?
Briggs, aye.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Aguirre, how do you vote?
Aguirre, aye.
And Mayor Dedina, how do you vote?
Dedina, aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thanks, everybody. And with that, I think it is time to end the meeting at 7:10 in the evening. Thanks, everybody, and meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.